World War III is racing civil war. Because while we're hearing about stories in like West Virginia about bombs, we have this one, a murder in Russia. I'm sure many of you have already heard, I believe it was Saturday evening, Alexander Dugin's daughter was assassinated in a car bombing. Now, initially they said it was meant for him. For those that aren't familiar with Dugin, he is a highly influential philosopher, nationalist in Russia. He's been referred to as Putin's brain or his spirit guide or the spirit guide of the Ukrainian invasion, all of those things. While simultaneously, some have also downplayed his influence in the Russian government. He's not explicitly a member of Putin's inner circle or anything like that. The Atlantic writes about it. Why an Assassination in Moscow Matters to Ukraine and the West by Tom Nichols. Oh, we love this guy, huh? He calls him a Russian fascist. The daughter of a prominent Russian fascist was killed in a car bombing in Moscow. Most Americans have no idea who the Dugin family is, but this event could have serious repercussions in Russia and Ukraine. So I don't want to jump the gun and say that this is World War III's Franz Ferdinand moment. Franz Ferdinand was like a royal family guy, right?
Yeah, Archduke.
Yeah, and so when they killed him, like you pissed off someone's family member, and then they all go to war with each other. This is like an influential guy in Russia's daughter. But then I want to point out too, the counterpoint there is while for those reasons it may not be the catalyst for an escalation, we're also in the influence era. We're in the the influence economy. So it is not necessarily politicians or royal family that have the most influence. Kim Kardashian has more influence than every single politician. And so someone who's that influential in social has more social credit than a politician. Something affecting them will matter more. So the way I described it earlier today, if they had killed Dugin, I think the impact would have been substantially less. People in the Russian government would be like, this is horrifying. I can't believe they did this. Instead, they killed Dugin's daughter, whoever did it. It was reported by Russian authorities, CNN repeated the reporting, that they were observing the vehicle and remotely detonated. They chose to detonate it. It wasn't like she turned the car and it went off. Someone pressed a button. So presumably they knew it was her. This is substantially worse because Dugin is the man of influence. And now all of that pain that he has will be channeled into the influence he uses. And it will be heard over and over and over again by all of his followers and his followers that are in the government. So this has now given him a reason to call for more war, more retribution, more anger. And he will drive that, to his followers.
I don't know. On its face, it looks like Ukrainians killed Dugin's daughter as retaliation for the war in Ukraine. But I was reading an article and they're like, false. This is a textbook Russian false flag could be a textbook Russian false flag operation. And then I started picturing like a conversation between Dugin and Putin, and Dugin's like, I would give everything for this country, Vladimir, everything. And Vladimir's like, you would give everything? And he's like, yeah, I would. And then Putin's like, all right, well, then I'll kill his daughter. Because and I don't even feel guilty about it because he already said he'd sacrifice everything for it. So
reportedly he has said things about sacrificing everything for the cause and things like that. But to this extent, I would just say it is the simple solution that they blew up his car and it was the wrong person. It's the simple solution that this guy is a nationalist, powerful influencer, and they wanted him gone. I mean, he's an influential guy. I mean, people in the West have interviewed him. His ideas have spread all across Europe. Not saying they're completely dominant across Europe, but a lot of people have listened to this guy. And if you take a look at the expansion of right-wing nationalism across Europe, well, there are certainly many people who don't like nationalism or the right who would look at him as one of the key components of pushing those ideas. So Occam's razor would suggest, in the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions, that's it. Internationalist forces, probably Ukrainian, targeted him in Moscow, killed his daughter. I'll put it this way too. The reason it's a simple solution that it's Ukraine. I'm not trying to blame them, to call them any names or anything, but to point out it's probably them. When you are the weaker fighting force, typically you see these groups engage in more terroristic activities and targeted assassinations and things like this because it's the best they could do in the conflict. For Russia, they're looking at a conventional war. You go in, send in the tanks, send in the troops, drop the bombs. For Ukraine, which is, I think, like the poorest country in Europe, and it's like the only country to get poorer after the fall of the Soviet Union, they're thinking we have to do whatever it takes. and we don't have much capabilities. Guerrilla warfare it is. Hit him in Moscow. That seems to make more sense.
It's the simplest solution for sure, but in war propaganda, they will use the simplest solution against you to make you think that that's what it is.
I think if they had assassinated Dugin outright, they would have risked a more serious retribution from Putin.
I disagree.
Well, my thought here is that his daughter, Dugin's daughter, was involved in his influence, and she was also seen, like, not on the international level that she was, but within the country, she is an advocate for his policies and beliefs. So in some way, they are maybe effectively hurting the morale of the Russian people by choosing to detonate the car when she was in it as opposed to him, while still being able to, like, say it wasn't quite as aggressive as outright detonating, this person who has tremendous influence in a relationship with the nation's president.
The one thing that I would say that is a counterpoint that suggests it may actually be a false flag, or Russians doing this, because we actually have a story here. Let me pull this up from the Daily Mail. Car bomb attack on Putin's Rasputin, who Vladimir deemed uncontrollable, has all the hallmarks of a Russian GRU execution, because military spy group often include a target's family. I don't see why they would go after Dugin. They're saying because the Kremlin deemed him unruly. The one thing I would say that makes me think it could be a false flag, although I don't think it is, getting his daughter was the worst possible thing you can do in terms of escalation. So to disagree with you a bit, Dugin's voice would be lost if he died. Mm-hmm. If your goal was to amplify his message of nationalism and get a martyr, you'd go after his daughter, because now you've got a martyr, someone who holds the same ideas as him, who speaks the same ideas, who is considered by the West a propagandist, who is considered by Russia as a journalist. You get your martyr, you keep Dugin's voice. You amplify Dugin's voice with a major story about how he's now a victim targeted by the excesses of the West. Now you've exemplified his message, amplified his message, and created a martyr all at the same time. It's the worst possible thing for escalation.
Well, unless you're Putin and you want to get the Russian people excited about attacking Ukraine, because if
that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think it's true. Look, I'm seeing a lot of these Democrats. They're like, he killed his own daughter. And I'm like, that's nuts. That's crisis actor level conspiracy nonsense. Sorry, dude. Unless you can come out and show me a video of him planting the bomb or whatever, I'm not going to believe he killed his own daughter. That's insane.
I'm picturing Putin going to Alexander and being like, I'm so sorry about your daughter. And then making full eye contact, and Alexander knowing that Putin killed her and just looking at him like, thank you, sir. And they both know.
It's just too...
That just seems too Hollywood to me.
I know.
Exactly.
I don't think that that's realistic. I think in some ways we believe that Vladimir Putin, and for good reason, is like an intense leader who has committed crimes that the West finds horrifying. But I don't think that there would be any benefit, especially if we already think this guy is unruly, then being like, and then I killed your daughter. They deemed him unruly. How do we know he's not going to flip and be like, I hate Putin now? You know what I mean? It doesn't do anything for Putin to try and antagonize or play with a variable that isn't dependable if they really do believe he's unruly. I think that, the most straightforward answer is this was an attempted assassination. I haven't read enough to know where Dugin was in relation to the car. Was he even there? To me, it makes more sense that they are trying to both be aggressive and also passive aggressive at the same time, and they see as taking out his daughter as an aggressive move while still being able to say, well, we're not the aggressors in this war.
So to your point, Ian, you're saying, it's like you're imagining Putin looking me in the eyes, and it's very Hollywood-esque. My counterpoint to that would be the reality is likely some fat middle-aged Ukrainian dude with a couple bombs, waddling over to the car and then slapping it with duct tape and then walking away and then waiting for it again and then pressing a button and going, oh, and then running away. Scraggly dudes. I'm not imagining, Spetsnaz, commandos, going in and the earpieces and they're like, do it. And then it's probably, it's roguish. It's guerrilla stuff. Mm-hmm. It's probably hobo looking dudes, who are angry, who are zealous. And probably Ukrainian. And
there are a fair number of Ukrainians who have gone to Russia since the start of the war. So there is a Ukrainian population within the country. I assume some are there because they want to be, and some are there maybe because they had to go. But Russia is not insulated from having Ukrainian actors be within its boundaries.
I will not decide. I don't even like the word probable now, because war fog is so it's ripe for disillusionment, and you want to trick people and you want to create that. So the most obvious answer a lot of times in war is not the right answer. The open field that looks like the best path is probably the kill zone, so you don't want to go through it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wait and see if they use this as a reason to go harder in Ukraine. Then that's like, well,
Russia is saying Ukraine did it.
of course.
Someone just super chatted in the pale moonlight. Tim, you guys know what that's a reference to? No Star Trek fans. For shame. Deep Space Nine. In the pale moonlight. Brilliant television. Spoiler alert. It's like a 30-year-old show, but I'm going to spoil it for you. Benjamin Sisko is the commander of an outpost for the Federation. This is Star Trek. A war breaks out. The Federation, which is the main characters, are being defeated they're slowly being pushed back, and they're losing the war to the Dominion. There's another race called the Romulans, and there's an armistice between the Federation and the Romulans. They hate each other. They go to them and say, you have to join the war on our side. Otherwise, after we're defeated, the Dominion will come and crush you. And they're like, no, they won't, and we don't care. We can handle ourselves. So the commander stages a false flag where he blows up a senator in a spaceship and plants evidence to make it seem, I could be getting this wrong, but something like this, makes it seem like the Dominion did it, forcing the Romulans to join the war on the side of the Federation. Now that we've gotten the fictional fun writing out of the way, there's a very real possibility that the goal here was a false flag, and it was to rally the Russian people, saying, look, they killed this young woman. She was 29 years old. They're targeting our children. This is horrible. We need your support in this war. And depending on what you read, Western propaganda says Ukraine's winning. Eastern propaganda says Ukraine's losing. Who knows, man?
It's
fog of war.
It's an emotional assassination. That was not a tactical assassination. That didn't take out a leader or a military commander or any of that.
And car bombs are crude. Yeah, super crude and a lot of collateral damage. It was not a surgical maneuver.
Well, I'm shocked that they would claim that anyone has done it, that they would deign to act like they know who did it. And if they do know who did it, how do they know who did it? I want to know.
It doesn't matter. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. It doesn't matter who did. You know why? Because in the East, they're going to say, in Russia, in China, they're going to say it was the Ukrainians, it was NATO. In the West, they're posting all over Twitter that it was a false flag, that Dugin killed his own daughter, because they have to. Because both sides have to...
There's a narrative they have to keep up.
Yep. And then in the end, we'll just be left wondering what actually happened. The good news is, whoever wins will tell us.
For sure. Honestly.
Yep. Well, yeah.
They'll give us the whole story.
They'll write the history for us, the history books, and then they'll let us read them.
With all the details. Don't even worry about it.
Do you think that the Russians are going to just end up taking the eastern part of Ukraine, get access to the Red Sea, and then it'll be over?
I don't know.
What's your opinion as a doctor?
As the Surgeon General of Florida, tell me about your opinions on Russia and Ukraine.
It is interesting. I mean, I agree that the part that is interesting, wouldn't it be nice to actually know what happened?
Yes.
You know, it would.
love
I
to
mean,
know.
it's just, and not. Of course, it doesn't even end with this, right? There's so many examples in history where it's still unclear what exactly happened, who gained, who lost, who was behind, sort of who was pulling the strings to create a series of events. It certainly does have the feel of that not an accident. I mean, it could have been, and I agree that's sort of the simplest answer, Occam's razor. But boy, it seems awfully dastardly to just have a simple explanation.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.